Okay, welcome back everybody. My name is Tucker and today has already been a crazy day. I told you guys in the first video of the day where we talked about Dennis Schroeder going to the LA Lakers, the plan for today, which was to make that Schroeder video. You guys loved that one. It was a 1 out of 10. That was a great start to the day. Then I told you that I was going to be streaming at 11 on Twitch while all of the trade craziness goes down. That was beyond a record-breaking stream. There were over 100 of you guys in there the entire time talking about everything that was going on in the NBA as soon as all the trade stuff hit. And so that was incredible. And then I told you there'd be a second video about some kind of trade recap. And it turns out it was the Oklahoma City Thunder again, and the subject of this video, and that is Chris Paul now being a member of the Phoenix Suns. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. You also can come hang out with me over on Twitch this evening as well. It's pretty likely that I'll be streaming tonight as well. A ton of you guys already came over there. If you did not today, you are missing out. Big things happening over there, and I would love to have you guys come over there and hang out, as even more trade stuff I'm sure happens throughout the rest of the day. So with those things said, you can also check me out at various socials at the bottom of the screen, but I don't want to delay too much further. Let's go ahead and get into the trade itself. So Chris Paul is now a member of the Phoenix Suns. That's kind of the headline here, right? But that certainly doesn't tell the entire story. There are a lot of things to talk about on each side of this deal. We'll talk about what this means for each team and other potential dominoes of this afterwards as well. Of course, the trade specifically is the Thunder receiving Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, Ty Jerome, Jalen LeCue, and a 2022 first-round pick from Phoenix that is protected. It is protected in the top 12 in the first year, and then it goes down 2 levels of protection for the next 2 years. So top 10, then top 8, and then unprotected all the way then in 2025, while the Suns are receiving most notably Chris Paul and then Abdel Nader as well. So first, let's talk about what this means for Phoenix, and then we'll get into the Oklahoma City stuff. So for the Suns, this has been a relatively rumored trade. The fact that Chris Paul could end up in Phoenix, there were some conversations had obviously before teams could officially make trades at noon today, noon Eastern time. And it always seemed like it was a bit of, not necessarily smoke, but like they were trying to, drum up some interest from other teams, maybe if you're Chris Paul's agent. And I was interested, but I wasn't really buying into that because I had thought, if the Suns have to include the 10th pick in this draft, that seems like a lot if you're talking about Rubio, Oubre, and the 10th pick in this draft. So ultimately, they found out they figured out a different trade package that allowed them to bring in Paul while also keeping the 10th pick in this draft. I speculated that Oklahoma City could have made that Schroeder deal in part to add another first-round pick so that they then can have those 2 first-round picks to send to Phoenix if they did get number 10 in this draft back. That ended up not happening. And for Phoenix, obviously, Chris Paul had an incredible season last year, right? I mean, to be even a borderline All-NBA caliber player last year at his age is pretty remarkable, and really had a bounce-back season after it looked like he lost a step the year before in Houston. And from a contract standpoint, it's not maybe as bad as you might think. Paul is going to be making $41 million this year, which is a lot. Then he holds a player option for $44 the following year. But it's only 2 more years left on this deal. It's not this super long, egregious contract that Paul's contract has been in the past. And he certainly was more tradable this offseason than he was the prior one, in which the Rockets spent multiple first-round picks and pick swaps in order to bring in Russell Westbrook in exchange for Chris Paul, again, after he had a season that was really not comparable from the eye test standpoint to this one. He looked much better, and it made sense for the Thunder to shop him and to look for other options as they look to create a leaner, cheaper roster and continue to stockpile first-round picks. Now, what the Suns are thinking here is that Chris Paul is not necessarily going to be the missing piece for this team. I don't think they're going to be competing for a championship or anything, but provides them a ton of legitimacy. This is a team that went undefeated in the bubble and still didn't make the postseason, but looked really good. It's not like they were beating up on bad teams. Like, they were playing well with pretty much everybody that they played against. They obviously won every single game in the bubble. And when you're looking at having Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, if you upgrade that point guard spot to this level and you bring in an All-NBA caliber player and Chris Paul, one of the better pick and roll players in the entire league, one of the better point guards of all time, even though at this advanced age, that would raise the ceiling of this group. And they're not wrong in thinking that, but what's going to be important about how we look at this trade moving forward for Phoenix is how the timing of all of this works out. Presumably, having a pick and roll player of the caliber of Paul should increase the play offensively to DeAndre Ayton, and if he continues to grow and develop on the defensive end, along with the wings that I mentioned, Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, then this should be a pretty good unit next year. However, they are still young. Devin Booker is obviously in his prime, but some of the other players that I mentioned are still young. And are they going to develop quick enough and well enough to maximize this window that they now have with 2 years of Chris Paul, assuming that Chris Paul is still at this level for the entirety of the 2 years of the contract? So when you're looking at the compensation that they're giving up, Rubio, you're upgrading that spot, so you're really not upset about trading him. Oubre is a relatively significant asset, but he's someone that will need to be paid at some point. He's coming off of an injury. Not a huge deal. Ty Jerome was a first-round pick last year. Jalen Lecque has some potential, and you've got that first-round pick as well that has a good amount of protections on it, but still you'd like to have all your picks under control. So they really didn't give up necessarily a ton here to get someone of Paul's caliber, but the danger, of course, is the age and the possibility of injury. And if those younger players don't grow and develop in the same timeline in which Paul is still, quote unquote, in his prime or in this weird post-prime stage of his career, then how high is this move really going to vault Phoenix up the standings? That's what they're going to have to figure out, and that's really what's going to decide if this trade was worth it or not. If this team wins 45 or 50 games in the Western Conference next year and is like a top 6 seed, this trade is absolutely worth it if you're Phoenix. However, if Paul is hurt, if he takes a step back because of age, if the other guys, the younger guys don't grow and develop in time, then you start to question, was it worth it to give up, a handful of young players and a pick for someone that, raised your ceiling a bit, but you really only ended up winning 40 games. You didn't make the postseason. Did that move actually help your team? So it's going to come down to results in terms of what this trade ends up doing for Phoenix and if it ends up being worth it. I like the risk, though, to be completely honest. I think it's a good fit. I think it's good for Devin Booker. It's good for everybody else in that starting lineup. As long as Phoenix can draft the correct player with the 10th pick and add some depth to this roster elsewhere, I think that this is a good move for them and one of the few moves on the board for them that truly raises their ceiling without leveraging any kind of their future moving forward, at least not in a significant way. So I like the move. It's well done. For Oklahoma City, they really couldn't lose here, in my opinion. I mean, Chris Paul, last off season, it seemed like it was going to be really difficult to move Chris Paul's contract if you're Houston, given how he looked on the court and his contract situation. And here we are now, a season later, and Chris Paul is a positive asset for this team. I think Kelly Oubre Jr. can certainly be a real thing for this group. They can re-sign him, assuming he comes back well from injury, because he does have 1 year left on his contract, and is someone that can be a nice wing. He can score the basketball, he can defend, he can shoot, a good wing player. Ricky Rubio can kind of be a steadying force on this roster at the point guard position, seeing as how this is a team that has traded away Schroeder and Paul over the last day and a half, so they're definitely going to need to add some depth there at the guard spot. Ricky Rubio helps them do that, or if they want to move on and trade him somewhere else, just like having Danny Green on this roster as well, they certainly can still do that, and they've developed a reputation of doing that under the Sam Presti era of turning assets into assets into assets, right? The interesting part to me here is, what do you think of Ty Jerome? I actually really liked him as a sleeper candidate coming out of the draft last year as kind of a bigger guard, at least at the point guard spot, that can shoot a little bit. If he can figure out how to defend, I think he can definitely be a positive player. And then Jalen Lecque still has a ton of upside and potential as well. And he's not just a throw-in into this trade. He could be something, especially in an Oklahoma City situation where player development is going to be at a premium. And then that first-round pick is always nice to have more of those under control. I think I read a stat that Oklahoma City has like 17 picks over the next 7 years or something, over the next 5 years. I don't 100% remember the stat, but Oklahoma City has a lot of firepower via trade or just to build up this roster over the next couple of seasons. And they just continue to add to that with this trade. Like I said, considering where Paul's value was at last year, they really couldn't miss by trading away Paul this offseason. And given their newly stated goals of being a little bit more of a leaner, cheaper team while also developing all these young assets as well, this certainly helps them do that. I mean, you're looking at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ty Jerome, Jalen Lecque, Kelly Oubre Jr., whatever they get for Ricky Rubio, if they do flip him, they're adding a first-round pick to this now as well. They've got various other younger-ish players they can develop on this roster with a Danilo Gallinari sign and trade and a Steven Adams trade certainly still on the table for Oklahoma City as they look towards not necessarily rebuilding, but retooling this roster after a surprise run last season and focusing a little bit more on, like I said, being leaner, being younger, being cheaper, but also playing more towards the future in what is a very uncertain time in the current NBA. It makes a lot of sense for this team to focus more on those future assets. And as I continue to advocate for bringing in another, younger guy alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to potentially, grow and develop alongside him. So they've certainly got the assets to still make other moves here. They can flip Kelly Oubre if they want to. They can flip Rubio if they want to. They can flip this future pick and the 2 firsts that they have in this draft to move up and go get somebody that they love. Oklahoma City has so many different pieces that they can swap and move around in any which direction that they'd like to, and that is a powerful position to be in. So very similar to what I talked about in the first video of the day with the Dennis Schroeder deal going to LA. This feels like a win to me. I feel like both teams got something out of this that they need. The Suns needed a little bit more legitimacy. They needed to build on the success that they had in the bubble. There's not really a better way to do that than bringing in someone like Chris Paul, assuming that all of those guys kind of grow and develop within the same timeline, that Chris Paul is still good. Even if it doesn't work out super well, the contract comes off in 2 years. You didn't give up an enormous amount here. It's not like you gave up multiple first-round picks and really, really good young players. So that's a positive. Whereas for Oklahoma City, you're getting younger assets. You're getting veterans you could possibly flip down the road for more assets, and you're getting an extra first-round pick to add to what is a ton of picks over the next couple of years here. So I think Phoenix is probably about done making moves outside of maybe some draft movement up and down, depending on what they want to do. But I think Oklahoma City is far from done making moves as we kind of look forward to potential other dominoes here. Like I said, Rubio, Oubre, or draft movement could all be in play here. Ditto with a potential Gallinari sign and trade, as well as a Steven Adams trade, where it seems like Oklahoma City is most aggressively exploring that option right now to teams that need a big, teams like Golden State and teams like Boston. So we've already had 2 significant trades, both of them involving the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more here over the next couple of days. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for all the love on the stream earlier today. It was an absolutely ridiculous stream. I loved having so many new people there, and if that is something that you are interested in coming to check out, you absolutely should. Like I said, sometime this evening I should be streaming again, and just kind of seeing what other trade craziness comes about in the NBA. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.